happening, cat daddies and foxy mamas? It's the Blaxploitation fanatic with another episode of the Blaxploitation Appreciation Podcast, where we celebrate Blaxploitation culture from movies to music to books and everything in between. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. All right, y'all. Today's movie is Uptown Saturday Night. And I have to tell you, man, I freaking love this movie. This is like one of the best blaxploitation movies throughout the whole genre. And the beauty of this particular movie is, number one, it has an all-star cast. Came out in 1974, produced by Warner Brothers. It has an all-star cast, but most importantly, man, in the blaxploitation realm, a lot of the movies were kind of more action, adventure, serious drama, crime oriented. This particular movie was able to take all of the blaxploitation elements and wrap them up into a comedy. And to me, man, that is like genius. And if I like to equate this with being, if we think of, I call it the like, because this was the blaxploitation era. Later in the 90s, when all of the kind of like urban movies came out, I call that hood exploitation because that was those movies were about the hood. Kind of think of, if you think of hood exploitation and think of Friday as being the quintessential classic comedy from that era, think of Uptown Saturday Night as being Friday's equivalent in the blaxploitation era. I mean, it's just the best comedy that wrapped up and incorporated all the elements from the era. So, I mean, without a doubt, man, it is wonderful. And if I had to give you like a quick overview, basically what it is two squares or normal Joes played by Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby. They try to recover a wallet that was stolen from again during a heist at a gambling joint, and that wallet contains a winning lottery ticket. So that's basically what the premise of the movie is. And like I said, it's an all-star cast in there, man. You got, first and foremost, you got Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier as the leads. Sidney Poitier playing Steve Jackson, Bill Cosby playing Wardell Franklin. But outside of that, man, you have like Harry Belafonte, man. He played G Dan, which is one of the gangsters who, as I tell you more about the plot, he played a gangster in this film. You have Calvin Lockhart, who played another gangster, Silky Slim. You had a lot of big names. So those are kind of like the main characters in here. But then you had a lot of big names who had smaller parts, but still, were big names in there. So, for example, Flip Wilson, he played the Reverend, and funny scenes, but not a lot of scenes. Richard Pryor, hilarious. Excuse me. Richard Pryor played this detective named Sharkbot Washington, who, when Wardell and Steve try to track down this lottery ticket, they hire Sharkbot Washington, and he's a like a crack detective and basically stole their money. So the scene that Richard Pryor was in for only a short minute, but it was hilarious. And then you had a couple of you also had a couple of lovely ladies in here. You had the wonderful Lee Chamberlain, who played Madame Zenobia. She's the proprietor of the gambling house that got ripped off. You had Roscoe Lee Brown, who played a congressman who, when Wardell and Steve go looking for, like, trying to get help to recover their ticket, they go look for help from Congressman Roscoe Lee Brown, or Congressman Chesley Lincoln is his name, played by Roscoe Lee Brown. And so those are just a few people who were big names who had small roles. And then some of the other notable names are here: Lincoln Kilpatrick. You may like, if you see the face, he played a henchman. Ketty Lester played Bill Cosby's wife. Harold Nicholas played Lil Seymour, and Paul Harris, who was the blind man in the Mac I talked about, he played a police officer. So it's just a lot of big names in this movie, man. And again, the more than anything, and let me mention this as far as people in the movie. Without a doubt, the scene stealer showstopper of the movie is the wonderful Paula Kelly, man, who played Leggy Peggy, and she was Congressman Lincoln's wife, but she was the dealer at the gambling joint. And then come to find out later on that she's actually the congressman's wife. So that's hilarious. But throughout the movie, and it's just wonderful scenes. And so what happens is, like I said, two squares, Wardell and Steve, they just kind of, man, we're two working stiffs, and they basically want to let loose. So they wind up going to Madame Zenobia's joint, which is a gambling hangout joint. So they wound up going there and actually making some money, winning, having a good time. But unfortunately, the joint gets robbed. And so while the joint gets robbed, their wallets and all their possessions gets taken. Well, the next day, Steve actually finds out that his wallet contained a winning lottery ticket. So now they're in this conundrum where they got to work to try getting the lottery ticket back. And like I said, during this, they try to seek help from Detective Sharp Eye Washington, Richard Pryor, who rips them off. They try to seek help from Congressman Lincoln. And then, while they're seeking help from Congressman Lincoln, and they find out that Leggy Peggy is his wife, she puts them up on, she gives them a rundown and tells them that they might want to track down a few street hustlers, starting with Little Seymour, to see if they can find out what's going on. So then they go look for Little Seymour, and hilarious scene there. They in order to draw him out in the location where he's at, they start talking stuff, and then they wind up getting beat down by Little Seymour and his bodyguard, Big Percy. Then from there, they go visit another gangster, which is Geechee Dan, played by Harry Belafonte. And Geechee Dan is beefing with Silky Slim. So during all of this, like, Geechee Dan's people think that Steve and Wardell are up to no good. So they kind of take him to this hideout. And while they're at the hideout, Silky Slim comes and, confronts Geechee Dan, but he's doing it under, hitting this under the outside. So he doesn't come in. But Wardell and Steve hear Silky's voice and recognize him as the stick-up man from Madame Zenobia's. So now they have to plot to get Geechee and Slim to provide access to the items that were stolen from Madame Zenobia's in order to get the ticket. And through all of that, man, hilarity ensues. And like I said, it's just a fun, beautiful movie to watch. And I was 3 years old when this movie came out. And I believe my mother took me to see this because I remember seeing this when I was really young. But even once I saw it when I was young, I've just seen this movie tons of times through the years. Like if I've caught it on TV, I know back in my early 20s, I rented it VHS. When I was in college, we watched it several times going through our Blaxploitation love phase. And then just now, since I'm just basically on this Blaxploitation kick, I watched this movie several times. I try to watch it several times a year, man, because again, it's a fun. It's not like it's PG rated, so you can sit down and watch it with the kids. It stands the test of time. So if you got young kids, man, and you're a fan of the '70s, show them this, man, to really appreciate Blaxploitation. It's not all about, the pimps, the hustlers type of movie, even though you got some hustlers, and I don't really think it was pimps in here, but just the fact of it's just, again, wonderful how they pulled this together as a comedy. And if nothing else, man, say what you want about Bill Cosby, but you can definitely see on full display Bill Cosby's comedic genius. I'm gonna show you a couple of scenes and you'll see what I'm referring to. But again, just Uptown Saturday Night, man, great movie. Not much by way of a soundtrack, but the theme song, Uptown Saturday Night, or Saturday Uptown, was sung by Dobie Gray. And you may know Dobie Gray from Give Me the Beat Boy and Free My Soul. But he did this song called Saturday Uptown, kind of upbeat, funky, and it's pretty cool to hear that played throughout the movie as well. But let's look at a couple of scenes. So again, the beautiful Rosalind cast. This particular scene right here, this is one where Steve, Sidney Poitier, her husband, is actually, excuse me, he is after the night spent at Madame Zenobia. Oh, I should have mentioned this. Madame Zenobia kind of flirted with Steve a little bit. So now he's got her on the brain and he's like dreaming about her. And Rosalind Cash or, excuse me, Sarah, Steve's wife, catches him dreaming and think he's dreaming about her. And so when she finds out he's not, she flips out. So this is kind of funny. Check this one out.
Are you dreaming of me, baby? You're dreaming of a woman.
So she got mad because he was dreaming of somebody else and it wasn't her. But again, Rosalind Cash always has been feisty, man. So just a great scene there. Now, in addition to the the humor, the great characters, the great cast, the the threads, the vines in there representative of the time. There was also a lot of great dialogue. And so this particular scene, I got to give a shout out to my man, Lee. Lee is one of my partners that, we go way back in. He mentioned about something that was said in this movie. And I was like, I totally forgot about this. So let me play this real quick. And we're talking about bringing back this saying here. So.
You brothers gonna participate or talk stuff?
No, we gonna play, man.
It costs $150 to get in this game. Now, if you haven't got it, agitate the gravel. And take this lane with you.
Agitate the gravel. All right. So I'm on a mission, man. We got to bring back agitate the gravel. When we telling somebody to hit the bricks, get out of here. Agitate the gravel. So shout out to my man Lee for bringing that back to me. Oh man, yeah, like I said, I just freaking love this movie, man. I cannot say enough about Uptown Saturday Night. And then this next one, like I said, Paula Kelly as Leggy Pecky, man, she basically stole the show. So this particular scene is where, they were at Madame Zenobia's gambling. She's like the rolling the dice. She's just hitting one after another, man. And so finally, somebody decides that, they want to change the dice. So peep how this goes down.
Hey, change the dice. Yeah, House, change the dice.
Hell no! If y'all can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. Harry S. Truman, December 17, 1952.
That's right. I was in the kitchen when he said it. Jump on me.
Y'all can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen. And then, like I said, man, the comedic genius of Bill Cosby when he was like, that's right, I was in the kitchen when he said it. I mean, I almost wonder if that line was improvised, man. But I mean, again, say what you want about Bill Cosby, but when you watch this movie, you can't help but appreciate his contribution to Black cinema, the Black experience as a whole. All right. And so that is pretty much what I have with the movie for this week, Uptown Saturday Night. And then lastly, I do want to mention something that was that happened with the movie is the movie back in 2024 was selected by the Library of Congress for preservation as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And I could say it's definitely all of those things. Culturally, because it celebrates Black culture in a positive way, man, kind of comedic, without belittling or, making Black people look bad. Oh, and the other thing about this movie, Sidney Poitier actually directed it. And it's one of, although they weren't sequels, Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier did a trilogy of movies. They did Uptown Saturday Night first, Let's Do It Again was number 2, and then A Piece of the Action was number 3. Uptown Saturday Night's the best. Let's Do It Again, number 2, and A Piece of the Action wasn't as good, but those 3 were the Sidney Poitier, Bill Cosby trilogy. And like I said, Sidney Poitier directed this one. I think he might have directed the other 2 as well. And we'll talk about those in future episodes. The other thing that I want to mention is there's been talks of remakes of Uptown Saturday Night. Names have been thrown around. Like I think Will Smith had originally commissioned wanting to do it. Kevin Hart's name has been attached to it. Eddie and Martin, Denzel. So there's talks and possibly remaking of this. But for me personally, as a true Blaxploitation fanatic and fan, I plead with all of my Black actors out there. Let's leave this one alone, man. Let's just let the classic rest and not try to remake this. Because the last clip I want to show is just when you look at this was the end credit scene, the Black royalty involved in this. Can we just leave this alone, man? Bill Cosby, Wardell Franklin, Lee Chamberlain, Madam Zenobia, Paula Kelly, Leggy Peggy, Flip Wilson was the Reverend, Richard Pryor, Sharp, Washington, Roscoe Lee Brown, the Congressman, Harold Nicholas, Lil Seymour, Harry Belafonte, Geechee Dan, Calvin Lockhart, Silky Slim, Rosalind Clash, Sarah Franklin, and Sidney Poitier and Steve Franklin. So with that, man, I mean, that's just looking at those end credits. That was Black royalty right there, man. So let's just leave Uptown Saturday Night alone. Let's just preserve it like the Library of Congress did. Not remake, not redo, not retouch it. Okay. All right. So that's our movie for this week. Our book. Now, the book for this week is called The Pockets by an author named J.B. Springs. And this particular book is not really in the Blaxploitation era. It came out in 1985, which is well beyond the Blaxploitation time. But when you look at this cover, man, when I look at this cover, I was like, this cover truly represents Blaxploitation. So I had to include this in the reading. So that was the book I read for this weekend. What it's basically about is the short story of it. It's a stick-up man's exploits from New York to Florida to Chicago, San Antonio, Mexico, and in between. And it just kind of talks about this guy named Chill, a stick-up man named Chill, and his exploits throughout being in the game or being in the pocket. The pocket represents being into the game. And what it's ultimately about is this cop who has a vengeance against him from back when they were little. There used to be a guy he ran with in the gang, but that guy went on to become a cop, and he basically stumped a mud hole in that kid when they were younger, took over the gang from him, and he never got over that. So he became a cop and had this vengeance out, and ultimately wants to take Chill out of the pocket. So that's what this is about. Throughout this, we see different ladies that he kind of interacts with. His main man goes to prison. And so this one is a pretty good read. The only thing about this is it was, I'd say probably maybe 25, 50 pages too long. I think for me personally, at least, there was some fluff in there, some extra stuff in there they could have left out. But overall, it's a good read. And, I try to make some connections sometimes. So since Uptown Saturday Night was about a stick up at a gambling joint, this one was about a stick up man. So I tried to make a little bit of a connection. The nice thing about it is there is some dialogue in here that is definitely, representative of Blaxploitation. It makes you say, oh, that's hilarious. So here's, I'm gonna just read this passage real quick. This was one that caught my attention in terms of saying, oh yeah, that's gangster, that's Blaxploitation. So what happened is Chill and his girl stuck up this joint. And when they stuck up this joint, they went in, it was like, Chill spoke to the people in the room. This is what he said. That's right. This is just what it looks like, a stick up. You got two choices: be quiet and still, or be dead. One of you buys a ticket, you all do. I'm an equal opportunity killer, and they've got a sale on bullets downtown. Any takers? So, good reading. The author himself, J.B. Springs, he was a prisoner. So it was written or published by Holloway House, and several not a lot, but I'll say several authors on Holloway House. What they did is they actually allow guys in prison they published a lot of books from people who wrote while in prison. I think a lot of authors got the Donald Goines bug because, Goines wrote a little bit when he was in jail, wrote several of his novels when he was in jail, and Holloway House put him on it, the success of Donald Goines. So I think they kind of thought they hit on a formula there and hooked up with several writers who were in prison or in jail and wrote books and put those out. And J.B. Springs was one of those guys. Just a note to my bibliophiles out there. You probably are aware of this, but don't make this mistake that I made. I don't know if you could see this. I read this book. I had it in cold temperatures. I had it stored away in cold temperatures. And when I started reading it, you could see my cover kind of fell apart. So I probably cost myself some money there. I don't think this one is real valuable, especially because it came out in the 80s, not in the 70s, but still 40 plus years old. But might have cost myself some dollars there by jacking up the cover. But nevertheless, the Pocket, J.B. Springs, good read. All right. And so with that, the last thing we talk about is, of course, our music for this week. And the music for this week is Chuck Jackson, the album Through All Times. Now, you may know Chuck Jackson from the 1962 hit Any Day Now. Any Day Now. Love will be around. That was his thing. But this particular album is a soulful album. The nice thing about Chuck, man, this one came out in 1974, and Chuck, his voice, man, Chuck is a man, but he has a man's voice where you listen to him and you're like, yeah, that's powerful soul. But there's a couple of joints out here that I can sense being part of Blaxploitation movie, and it's just the funk. I mean, not the funk. This is more soulful than funky. I think there's a few funky joints on there, but this is definitely more soul than funk. And so this one, Through All Times, this is the title cut. Right there. I want you to hear that part right there. So you can kind of sense that's pretty smooth. And so the other two cuts, these stood out for me because they are truly reminiscent of, I could see these being part of a Blaxploitation movie. So this one is Roller Coaster. And when I hear this one, I envision this as being part of a Blaxploitation movie car chase. Check this out for a minute. So when I'm listening to this, I'm kind of envisioning on a highway, a Blaxploitation car chase. So definitely Blaxploitation song right there. And then the last one, this one's called I Can't Break Away. And this makes me think of a scene in the Blaxploitation movie where, kind of like guys are sitting around talking, plotting a heist or something like that. So peep this one out real quick. So kind of like the dilemma as they're sitting around talking. So I wanted you to get a little sense of Chuck's voice as well. You see what I'm talking about, that powerful soul. So there you have it for this week, my peeps. We got the movie, which is Uptown Saturday Night, one of the best comedies in the Blaxploitation genre. Definitely check it out. We got The Pocket by J.B. Springs as the book. So when you get a chance, if you could track that one down. And then lastly, we got Through All Times by my man Chuck Jackson as our Blaxploitation soul. So I'm going to leave you with that one, Foxy Mamas and Cat Daddies. We going to get out of here. And so if nothing else, I will catch you on the flip side next episode. Peace.